Okay, so now what I'd like to go a little bit through is Makefiles, headers, and yeah, basically Makefiles and headers. So we had this this program from before. This is just 3.1's code, but it's kind of a little bit unwieldy. Like you probably saw that as I had to get to this relatively small bit of code, I had to scroll through a lot of lines. So first of all, what this include does is just copies in some data straight away. A file just plonks it right in. So the first thing we can move out is this common bst.h, which is just this much. So how this works is we create a new file called bst.h, and then we've got this declaration, so now things know that there's such a thing as a struct bst, and it doesn't need to know what's actually involved in that. There's this function called bst_insert, which takes parent data. So these basically tell you, what there is available, but not necessarily how to do it, or what any of it means. Okay, so that's how that works. And now we'll uncomment these. Alright, so this is going to be bst.c, and yep, cool. So that's going to be our new bst.c. And something that you might notice is that there's these functions: spaces at depth, count depth, well, draw trees in here, but there's spaces at depth and count depth that we don't actually declare in this bst.h, and that's because they're only helper functions. And we could declare them static, but which would possibly give some performance benefits, but we don't really need to for now. Okay, so that's just going to be bst.c, and this, like, we've defined what this structure means in this object and all these functions. Okay, so that's the next part that we've done. So now we'll take this other data structure, which is a queue. Well, specifically this one's a linked list queue, but anyway. So we take that and then just put that in new file called, I think it was llqueue.c. And yeah, again that copies in llqueue.h, and this one's again same kind of thing. llqueue.h comes in here, and it tells us about this struct llqueue, you know, what it does, what it returns, all those kinds of things. Alright. Then the last bit is kind of the main file, but I'll just call that 3.1.c. And note that this program only needs to know about struct bst. The bst.c needs the llqueue for the draw tree function, but the main function doesn't actually have to know about that, so we don't need to include it. Yeah, cool. So that's essentially how to break it up, and header files just tell you these prototypes basically, and have generally some comments about what it does, what the arguments are, and what it returns. So now the next thing that we'll do is actually write a Makefile for that. So we'll do new file, and this should just be called Makefile with no extension, and we'll actually run through that. So in the first Makefile video we had something fairly basic that wasn't really that practically, like, it wasn't too difficult to actually compile that by hand, but this one, it gets a little more complex. So here we want to create a program called 3.1, and we look at the things that relies on. So it's the kind of things that could make this program, what's included in here, actually change. So we see that this depends on bst.h, so we'll put that in here. And obviously it also depends on 3.1.c, but nothing else really. Yeah, so that's our first intuition, but yeah, so that would end up with something like that, something like 3.1 be 3.1.c -g for debugging symbols, but this isn't quite going to give us everything we want. We could put the extra C bits on, but because this main function doesn't actually have to know how the binary search tree works or anything like that, we can actually separate them out. So instead of making this rely on the actual 3.1.c, the actual source file, we can make it rely on the object. So that's going to rely on the C file, and here this will be a dash, this will use a -c, so this means compile rather than link, which puts things together. And this one will change to, not .0, and then we'll send in 3.1.c, and we could give it an output name of 3.1.0 as well, but we don't have to. It automatically, it knows if we're sending in a C file, it'll change this .c to .o. Oh, and this C as well, you can put it anywhere, just like -g. Yep, so then we'll just do -g. I guess for good measure we'll do -o anyway. 3.1.0. Okay, and then we'll have similar things for the other bits. So we also want to create the BST. So BST.o, BST.o, and then we write how we actually make BST.o, and that one relies on BST.h. So I'll move this over here. Sorry, we'll move this one here. So this one relies on llqueue.h, bst.h, and obviously bst.c will make that change. Alright, so bst.c, and then the output should be bst.o. Okay, so that's bst.o. Then the other one that we have to make is just llqueue. So llqueue.o is the other one we need. So llqueue.o, and we'll put that in the compilation too. And this one relies on obviously llqueue.c, but also llqueue.h. So that's just this dependency is just based on what makes this file change when the file itself doesn't change. Alright, so this is going to be another GCC all warnings, llqueue.c, compile, compile it, add debugging symbols, and then make the output llqueue.o. Okay, so that's basically how all those work. There's not much else to it. You can definitely be a little more complex with it, but that's kind of how that works. So now we just have to, I probably should have prepared for this a little bit better, because I forgot to open up a terminal. Oops. But when I do, okay, so alright, so the other thing that I kind of want to do is walk through something for actually connecting to the servers on Mac and things like that. So Mac and Unix, you'll use SSH, your username at the either dimefox or nutmeg, so dimefox for example, .eng.unimelb.edu.au, and then it'll probably ask for your password. Yep, and then normally you'd use FileZilla, but I'll just use this, and then you should be on. Alright. Alright, so I'll just create a new directory. Then I'll have to navigate there. Okay, so all those go in. Alright, and now what I can do is do make 3.1. That should run everything. So it compiles 3.1.c into 3.1.0, then bst.c into bst.o, then llqueue into llqueue.o, then it links all those together. If we do 3.1, and then we put in all the text, yep, so just this, and then and that, then that comes out fine. Alright, so that's basically Makefiles in a nutshell. There's lots more you can do with them, but that's the main part. Hope that was helpful.